it's Whitney. Today I want to share with you some realizations, as I usually do, and how sometimes when we make mistakes, sometimes when we go through challenges, the reason is for us to grow as human beings. In fact, I might say instead of sometimes, I would say most times, if not always, when anything is challenging in life, it's meant to be a lesson. And I get that concept on a very logical basis, but on an emotional basis, it's challenging and it takes a lot to process through. So I'm going to share with you some mistakes I made, and then I'm going to share with you how I process them and how I'm still processing them, because these just happened. And they're all very minor. One of the things that I'm learning about myself is that I'm really hard on myself. And I have been reflecting lately about some of my behavior and my moods and my habits and trying to understand why I am who I am. And I guess that's always something I'm thinking about. I'm naturally curious. I'm naturally that person who wants to know why all the time. And one thing I've been noticing is just times when I feel like I'm lacking motivation and feeling tired or stressed or whatever else is going on. One thing I will note, just as a quick side note, I really feel like my diet has drastically shifted things for me on that end. So in terms of like energy and learning more about how to energize my body, but just like feeling naturally energized every day, I think the way that I've been eating for the past, it's almost been 3 months now, or maybe it has been 3 months. I don't remember when I exactly started it, but it was towards the end of July, beginning of August. I started trying out the vegan version of the keto diet, and it was supposed to be very temporary, but I love it so much. I feel like I'm thriving on it. I've been reading so much about it, and I just like love it. I have no plan for ending it. I don't know when or if that'll happen. But that has drastically helped me with my energy. It's pretty phenomenal. And just all sorts of little tweaks that I've been doing too. I've been reading a book, the Bulletproof Diet book, which is not a vegan book, but there's a lot of really great takeaways in there. So you can extract a lot and just like ignore the animal product recommendations, which is what I've been doing. And man, that book has really inspired me. So today, for example, I'm having a coffee, which I made bulletproof by adding in some MCT oil, which is really good for your brain and for burning fat and getting more fuel and thus being more energized. And I just feel absolutely phenomenal right now physically. I also just came back from a yoga class. It's only 11:20 a.m. Normally, I'd be just getting going with my day at this time, but I got up at 8:30 a.m., which is 2 hours earlier than I usually get up. And I went to yoga, which is really abnormal for me. So in order to make that happen, I went to bed early last night, and I just like, it's just one of those great examples of when you really set yourself up for success and when you're committed to tweaking your life for optimization, it just has a massive ripple effect. So I expect today to go pretty well. The challenge was the mentality that I struggled with this morning. I remember waking up shocked that I was wide awake at 8:30 a.m. I mean, I actually woke up before my alarm went off. I wasn't supposed to get up till like 8:40. And I woke up, I had my Apple Watch on. I sleep with this on for sleep tracking, which is a whole nother topic, but also very fascinating. And I looked at it and I thought, what? It's 8:30 a.m.? I thought I had like overslept or something because I was so energized. And so I'm feeling all excited about that. Oftentimes in the morning, I try to avoid looking at my phone, emails, texts, and all of that first thing because I feel like it can really throw me off. Well, this morning, I can't remember why I felt like I wanted to. Sometimes it's just like, I'm just going to look at my phone even though I feel like I shouldn't, right? The reason why I feel like it's not good for me and many of us to look at our phones first thing in the morning is, first of all, there's so much research about eye strain and just looking at devices way too much. I feel like we got to give ourselves as much of a break as possible from screens, which is ironic because you're watching this on a screen right now. And I also feel like looking at my phone, at least from my experience, I can get stressed very easily. Part of it's because I work for myself, and a huge part of my work is receiving emails, responding to emails, getting new opportunities or being turned down from opportunities, or of people following up about things. I mean, there's just a lot. So opening up my inbox, I never really know what's going to come at me. And so I feel like if you put yourself in that position when you first wake up, it's a little dangerous for your emotions because you just don't know what's around the corner. It could be really good or it could be really bad. It could make you feel good or make you feel bad. I decided to look anyways. And one of the first things I saw was the consequence of a mistake that I made last night. So this is a really minor one, and that's why I don't know if I'll change the title of this video, but as of right now, while we're recording this live, the title of this video is I've made some stupid mistakes. So this is stupid mistake number one. And the reason I use the word stupid is because it's basically very minor. So stupid is not my favorite word. Maybe I'll change the title because of that. But it does feel silly because the fact that I made this mistake in the first place was just a weird error of mine. But it's also so trivial. And yet, it really triggered me. So basically, last night, I had to order something for a project that I'm working on with a brand. And I'm just like feeling good about myself, getting something done, checking something off my to-do list, right? And so I'm filling out this order form and I press order. And then as soon as I press that button, I realize I put in the wrong shipping address. I'm going to the East Coast tomorrow and I'm going to be gone for like 3.5 weeks from my home in LA. So I need to have this product delivered to me in Massachusetts in order to complete it in time, the project that I'm working on. And I was like, oh no, okay, I'm going to quickly go and see if I can change my address. Sometimes you can like edit your order, especially if it's right after you order it. Couldn't do that. Then I went and emailed them and I was like, I'm sure they can fix it. Well, this morning I wake up and get an email from them saying, sorry, we've already shipped it out. We can't change your address. And I was so irritated by that mistake because I was like, wow, I just made this like simple, small error. And now it's like, it has this whole domino effect. It's got this big consequence, right? And so the mistake was just so simple, which I feel like any of us can make. Sometimes we just get into autopilot and mistakes are made because we're doing things. When I say get into autopilot, it's like we're doing the same thing over and over and over again, or many times we're used to it. We have like a physical memory of it, right? What's the term for that? Like a body memorization? No, I don't know. That'll come to me later, but I'm sure you know what I mean. We memorize how to type something in, right, when we're ordering something because we're so used to putting in the same information over and over again. So when you have to change something, when there's a variable and you have to input something new, sometimes your body just reverts back to the old way, right? So that's basically what happened to me. Very trivial thing, but unfortunately, it had a ripple effect that was really, really frustrating for me because now instead of just like putting in the right information and having everything go, I have to course correct. And again, this is very minor, but it really activates me when I have to course correct because I think it adds more stress to me, right? And this is the type of thing that I'm processing. I'll get deeper into that in a moment. So that was actually my second mistake yesterday. The first one was even more frustrating and really just like hit me in the stomach. Again, a very minor, quote unquote, stupid mistake and an innocent one too. So this is actually another great example of mistakes that we can make. Long story short, I'm working on another project. So this is it. A lot of my mistakes, when they're tied into projects, I get very stressed out about them. So a company had sent me a product and I don't want to reveal what it is yet because I'm doing a big video and it's coming very soon. I've been working on it for a long time. So I'm trying to see if I can effectively tell the story. I'll just be very vague about it because I want to save the reveal for later. But anyways, the company sent me a product. I had to install the product on something. And without really getting into the details, I installed the product and then the product actually got lost after installation. And this is super vague. It probably makes no sense to you because I'm not getting into details, but let's just leave it at that, right? So I put it on there. I'm like so excited. I'd been waiting. I think I'd had this for like a month and a half, finally installed it, super excited about it. And then along the way, like post installation, again, very vague details, this thing got lost. And it was within like 20, 30 minutes of me installing it. And I went from this like super excited, oh my gosh, this is so great. I finally did it. This looks amazing. This is going to improve my life. And then bam, within 30 minutes, it was completely gone. And it was like, imagine like something breaks, right? You've probably had that feeling before. You get something new and you're so excited. You've been waiting for it. And it's like something really that's helpful to you or important to you, and it breaks. Oh, and I just got that gut punch, and I'm like, oh. And then of course I have to course correct again because this thing was important to me, and this thing was given to me for free, and this thing is part of videos, and it's like there's a big ripple effect. So in addition to like the tension I was feeling from making a mistake, which I know is innocent. So in that case, it was a little different. Muscle memory was the term I was looking for when I was ordering the other product from mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, I thought that I was doing everything right. I thought I was being very careful and mindful. It didn't even occur to me that I could lose this thing, that it could break, and in a vague idea of what happened. And so I was so upset because then I'm like, oh no, I did my best and I thought I was doing everything right. But in hindsight, maybe I should have double checked that it was on there properly. Maybe I should have just done a little bit more, right? And that's really tough because when we have those reactions of making a mistake and then looking back on it, it's so tough because I struggle with this. Like a lot of times when I make mistakes, I go through that mindset of like, oh, I should have done it differently. I should have known better. That is really intense for me. And it sits with me for a long time, that emotion. It's like in my head, I'm reprimanding myself. In my head, I'm like angry at myself. I'm being punitive with myself. And that's super painful. That must be residual energy and thoughts patterns from my childhood, right? I have a mother, as if you've been watching this channel for a while, my mother is a really wonderful woman and we are pretty close, but what keeps us from being super close is that she tends to be very controlling and judgmental and narcissistic. And my experience as a conscious adult of her, I can't imagine fully what she was like when I was a kid because I probably wasn't able to mentally process it. But what I imagine probably happened is that I got punished a lot for making mistakes. Okay, so before we dig back into the deeper things here that I've been processing, I made a third mistake, and this one felt almost as bad or frustrating as the other, if not more. So I'm flying cross country tomorrow morning, and then I'm actually going to Greece next week. So I have this huge trip coming up, and I've been prepping for it. I mean, I've spent this entire week like diligently going through and making sure I'm packing everything. I'm at the point where I'm literally going, like I've packed all my bags on the couch over here. You can see all my stuff. And it's not really that much because I'm trying to bring everything as carry-on to save some money. And so in order to bring it as carry-on, I'm like trying to be very specific about what I'm bringing and minimalist. And like, I'm just like processing a lot. I'm trying to make sure I'm going to be comfortable on all these long flights that I'm taking. And so needless to say, I've just been putting so much time, effort, and energy into preparing for this. And I've been feeling really good about it until this morning when I realized I had made another mistake. So stupid mistake number 3 is that I forgot to double check my information on my ticket. And I accidentally, by forgetting to double check it, I had not put in something called your known traveler number, which is something that you receive if you sign up for pre-check, or in my case, it was called global entry. And by the way, very important side note, if you travel at least once or twice a year, I cannot recommend this enough. There's 2 different levels. If you're in the US, I forget what one of them is called. It might just be called pre-check or something like that. You can pay like $80 for, I think it lasts for 5 years, and you get a known traveler number. You have to go in and like have an appointment and meet with a security officer and basically prove your identity, show that you're a safe person. And when you receive this known traveler number, you get to go through TSA PreCheck. And then the global entry is the international version of that, which is really great. I used it last year to go to Mexico, and I'm using it this year when I go to Greece. And it also helps you get through customs faster. So basically it allows the government to know that you are a safe person and check you. It's just an extra security measure, which you pay for, and in exchange you get to expedited travel experience. It's awesome. I've used it many times since I got it a year ago. And the one thing you have to remember is that you have to put your known traveler number connected to your ticket. I think I must have thought that I had already done that, because this morning when I checked into my flight, I saw that they didn't have the number. And I think you have to do it 48 hours before your flight. I'm now at 24 hours, technically less, before my flight. So I couldn't get TSA PreCheck. Now, again, just like the other mistakes, this might not seem like that big of a deal. It's not really, because I can still get on my flight. But the frustrating thing is, if you travel enough, you know this, there's a huge difference between TSA PreCheck and regular TSA. It can be a matter of 15, 20 minutes, plus you have to take all the stuff out of your bags, and you have to take your shoes off, and you have to, if you don't go through the big machine, which I never do because I think it's too much radiation, I go through the smaller machine, then you have to get a pat down, you have to wait to get a pat down, and then they're often more stringent about your baggage. So I'm one of those people that almost always has something in my bag that looks suspicious, like some small liquid or some electronic device. It's very common for them to have to hand go through my baggage. So what through TSA PreCheck would be a 5-minute breeze of just walking through, and they're so trusting of you because they have your known traveler number, is now probably tomorrow morning going to be a much longer wait around frustrated people, taking all my stuff out of my bag, and probably going to be pat down. And, it's like, basically, in addition to the massive hassle, I also have to add another 30 minutes or so onto my travel time. Now, again, all 3 of these problems, all 3 of these mistakes were innocent. I didn't mean to do them. It was human error, and they're not that big of a deal, right? None of them have massive consequences. All of them can be corrected, resolved in some way. And also all of them are kind of first world problems, right? In the grand scheme of things, am I going to look back on my life and be like, should have put my known traveler number in on my flight last year or 5 years ago? No. Am I going to be that upset because I put the wrong shipping address? No, all of this stuff is so trivial. That's why I use the word stupid for it. Trivial is a much better word than stupid, by the way. But here's the big thing, and this is why I wanted to share it with you. I feel like all of us have these experiences, and these experiences come and go in our lives. We can't really know when we're going to make a mistake. If we knew we were going to make a mistake, then we probably weren't going to make it. I think there are different levels to mistakes. There are the mistakes you make because your brain just didn't think of it. Example would be the TSA issue. I simply just didn't even think to double check that I put my number in there, and now I have a consequence. The lesson there is next time, because oftentimes when we make errors, the pain of the consequence gets burned into our head so strongly that it prevents us from making that mistake again. I think that's actually really great. So hopefully this will teach me for years to come to always double check my ticketing, right? So that's the type of mistake I think, yeah, it's a pain in the butt. The consequence is annoying, but it's 30 minutes and a little bit of a hassle. That's not that big of a consequence. So I talk myself out of the frustration of it and say, lesson learned. The shipping thing, not that big of a deal. I actually was able to email the company and they're able to like adjust it. Long story short, I figured out a way to work through the issue that I had with shipping it to the wrong coast. It's a pain in the butt. It's going to require me to course correct in some more ways, more time and energy output. But again, not that big of a deal. I think probably the more frustrating one was the example number 2 of me sharing how something that I installed got lost afterwards. And that sucks because I might have to buy a replacement. Something that was once free, I'm going to may have to buy. I don't know. Or I just feel kind of like some shame around it, to be honest. So let's get into some of the processing. Because if you're like me and you feel the weight of mistakes, hopefully this will help you. Know that you're not alone. Mistakes happen to all of us. In fact, one more example is I went to my yoga class this morning and my teacher shared that he was supposed to teach a class this morning at 6:30 a.m. And he didn't set his alarm correctly. He didn't actually wake up in his bed at home until 6:30 a.m. So he had one of those horrible moments, which I've had a few times in my life, where your alarm doesn't go off as planned and you are not just late to something, but like you completely screwed up and it has a ripple effect to other people, right? So I was grateful for his mistake because I was like, oh, okay. It's important for us to be reminded that other people make mistakes. So hopefully this video so far, you have just found a little pleasure or sympathy knowing like we all happen. And if you are watching this after you recently made a mistake or in the future, you can always come back to this video and just see mistakes happen. I want to talk more about why I think this triggers me. I've touched upon this. So I feel some shame, right? I feel shame is something that I think I grew up with. Again, I believe this is part of my mother's parenting. I think that she thought that shaming her children was an effective way to get her children to do the things she wanted them to do. I think a number of people in the world use shame as a tactic, right? I'm very, very sensitive to shame now because I think it just triggers those emotions. And the more that I've understood what shame means, the more I notice it in the world. And every time I witness shame towards me or other people, I'm like, oh, it just like, it's so heavy. But I also need to recognize that I have a tendency to shame myself. I have a tendency to feel shame when nobody's even said anything to me. So, for example, with this product that fell off after installation or got lost after installation, I was ashamed when I emailed the person that sent it to me. And I said, hey, I put something on. I thought I did everything right and it fell off. Like, what can we do about this? And I was ashamed to ask him if he would send me a replacement. Now, maybe on his end, he'll receive that and go, oh, that's too bad. Of course, I'll send you a replacement. That could happen. He could say, you know what? We don't have any more, or we can't expense it. I'm sorry about that. And I had the decision of either buying a replacement or just not having it at all, right? But I experienced shame through my mistake. I was ashamed that I made the mistake, and I was ashamed to ask for somebody's help in repairing it. From the outside, it may seem really weird, but I think, again, these are some of the things that some of us grow up with, as I think I have, through parenting and maybe through teachers and friends, I've been around enough people who have really criticized me for making mistakes. Now, it's not to put the blame on other people. I've internalized their reaction. And I think that's basically what's happened. And not only have I internalized it, but I've come to expect it. And I've created these emotional habits within myself where when I make a mistake, instead of anyone else saying anything, I shame myself. I criticize, condemn myself. I go, a slap on the wrist, like you shouldn't have done that. You should have known better. And I think that's where a lot of the heaviness is sitting there. I processed that yesterday. So that was about 24 hours ago that one mistake with the installation happened. Then the thing with the shipping the product happened last night. And I was like, one of those, I was like, muscle memory, that sucks. I'll see what I can do to fix it. And then again, when I turned on my phone this morning, I saw the consequence of my action. And it never feels good to wake up and the first thing that you see is somebody telling you that they can't help you fix your mistake. That feeling, I think, makes me feel very unsupported. So I actually felt a little angry towards the company. I'm like, why can't they help me? This was an innocent mistake. They should be set up to check for these things. And I was like very irritated with them. And then I thought, why am I irritated? I'm irritated because I want some sympathy and I want support. What I crave is somebody to say, you know what? Everyone makes mistake, Whitney. It's okay. Let's figure this out so that we can reverse it and the consequences aren't that bad, or there's no consequences. That's what I yearn for. I yearn for opportunities to redo something, right? But the truth is, in life, sometimes when we make mistakes, whether innocent or ignorant or lack of awareness, whatever it is that caused the mistake, sometimes the consequences are going to be there no matter what, and there's no reversal. Sometimes no amount of sympathy will help. Sometimes there's just going to be something bad and negative about it, and you just have to deal with it. That's the case in the TSA thing. And the TSA thing was interesting because I discovered this on my way to yoga. I was like checking in for my flight as I was leaving. And I was like, I had to sit there on my drive to yoga being like, made a mistake. And then I went into yoga and the whole class, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to work, like, flesh out the issues in my tissues is something they'll say in class, right? I'm going to sweat it out. I'm going to process it in my head. It'll be gone. And the entire hour-long class, I was sitting there going, I made a mistake. It was like a mantra and I shouldn't say the entire class because I would let it go and I'd become very focused and present. And then a few minutes later, I'd be like, I made the mistake. And then I'm like, no, forget the mistake. And I'd forget it. And then it'd come back up again. And that's where I was starting to feel really curious about my emotions, is that, man, our heads can just run away with us. And this is the advice I would give to you if you were sharing this story to me. And this is the advice I love to give to anyone. I just gave it to a friend last night. Is this is temporary. These thoughts are temporary. It is so important to remember that, or to connect to that as quickly as possible when your mind is just running away and getting negative, is to remember that your thoughts are so temporary. This is something that you learn while practicing meditation. And one of the reasons I highly recommend taking a meditation class, that gave me so much value. You can just sit down, you can listen to a meditation recording. Those can be very helpful and sometimes just as good as a class. But going to a class is where I really learned about the value of meditation. And one of the best parts is that you learn to just watch your thoughts, not be attached to your thoughts or your emotions. Just watch them pass by like you're sitting on the side of a stream and your thoughts and emotions are just going down the stream and passing by you. To me, that's very helpful and soothing. It's helpful even just to say out loud right now. And I want you to remember that too when you feel like your thoughts are running away and that they don't make any logical sense. They're just thoughts. And as I mentioned earlier, all three of these mistakes are so trivial that I can just view them as lessons to practice being unattached to the mistakes, to practice accepting the consequences, to practice forgiveness to myself when I make mistakes, because we need to forgive ourselves. And again, sometimes we're raised in environments where forgiveness is not playing a big role. One thing my mom would say to me a lot when I was growing up, I would make a mistake and sometimes she would say, well, God's punishing you. You must have done something wrong to deserve this. Oh, that sounds so awful saying that out loud. But for some reason, my mom thought that was an okay thing to say to your kid, right? So I think I just got into this state growing up of I better not make mistakes because I don't want God to punish me. And I just became very, very, very fearful of making mistakes. I think that's a huge source of my personal stress and maybe some of yours as well. I am terrified of making mistakes. I am consciously not that afraid of failure, but unconsciously terrified of failure because failure means I made a mistake. And so that can get in our way so much. We are afraid to do things or say things, look a certain way, all of these things because we don't want to make a mistake. And when anyone points out a mistake of mine, a flaw of mine, it triggers me because I get into that place of I did something wrong, even though I didn't mean to, and I'm going to be punished for it. There are going to be consequences. I'm embarrassed, or I'm ashamed, or I am inconvenienced and frustrated. Like all of that negativity comes up. So now that I can better understand this and maybe raise some awareness within you, if any of this applies to yourself, I think looking back into how did your parents handle it when you made mistakes? How did your friends, families, and teachers handle that? What do you think about yourself? How do you punish yourself or forgive yourself when you make mistakes? How do you process it? Raising that awareness can help us shift our mentality. And I think that's really the gift, the lesson in all of this for me, and maybe you as well, is that I had 3 mistakes that came within 24 hours. They all had consequences. They were all very frustrating. They were also all very minor. And because they were minor, that's a phenomenal gift because now I can train myself to be more forgiving, to get to forgiveness quicker, to remember that I'm a human being that's flawed and make mistakes, and I'm always doing my best. I think doing those turnarounds is also so important, in addition to forgiveness, which is one of the most important things we can extend to ourselves and other people in these times. But to just say, you know what, you're doing your best. Those words are so powerful. To say that to yourself and other people when they make mistakes is huge. I think that's what all of us need to be reminded of. Were you doing your best? Yes. Even sometimes we don't even feel like we're doing our best. We're probably doing our best. I think each of us are trying to live our lives to the best of our knowledge, to the best of our current abilities. And it's tough sometimes when we've been programmed to not think that way. So, talking things out loud. I feel like you're a friend, so I can talk to you about this. Thank you for holding space for me. I work through a lot of emotions by processing, and that's one of the most amazing gifts of this channel for me, is just to talk things out. And I'm so, so grateful for you for, again, holding that space for me. That is one of the greatest gifts you could ever give me. So thank you. I feel better. I feel more relieved. I don't feel 100% because there's still tension in here. Some things are much easier said than done, right? Things like this, you're unraveling, or I'm unraveling in this case, my entire lifetime of reactions. I remember my mom saying, punishing me or verbally, shaming me or whatever she was doing when I was under 10, right? So I've been carrying around those emotions and those reactions most of my life. She probably said those things to me when I was a little baby, like a year or 2 old, right? So that's the way my mother parented me, and that's the things that I learned. And now as an adult, I'm taking the personal responsibility to unravel it and do things differently and realize that that does not serve me. I don't think that serves anybody, but parents do the best they can, and that's how my mother chose to parent me. And as adults, we can then make that choice to live our life on our own terms. So I'm grateful for these mistakes to bring that awareness. And speaking of gratitude, that is really one of the best things you can do in these cases, is to just focus on what you're doing right, not what you're doing wrong. Again, easier said than done. I really struggle with that. I tend to emphasize anything that goes wrong. So now I'm trying to work on emphasizing all the things that are going right, because if those 3 mistakes were so magnified in the past 24 hours, but so many amazing things have been going right and are going right in the future. So today my practice is to focus on those things, to remind myself I'm doing my best, and to be grateful for the lessons. Thank you so much for all your comments. I had so much to share with you. So let me just go through some of the live comments coming up. I want to say hello to Yadi, who's excited about Greece. I'm very excited about Greece. I think I'll be excited when I get on the airplane to Greece. So I'm taking 4 flights in the next month. one from LA to Boston, one from Boston to Greece, one from Greece to Boston, and then one from Boston to LA. And flying really stresses me out. I get a lot of anxiety. That's partly one of the reasons that the whole TSA debacle just like doesn't feel good, is because I feel like that's just going to add to the stress of flying tomorrow. But I can make sure that the other 3 flights that I'm taking, I'm not going to make that mistake. So I'll probably go right now and double check that my known traveler number is everywhere. And it's probably more important for me to have that on the way to Greece anyways. So yes, I actually am hoping to do some live video, like at least one live video in Greece. And then I'm going to be recording a bunch. I've been working on a travel series. So I have so much content that I just have to sit down and edit. Anyways, I plan to share. I'm getting a new iPhone, which is really exciting because I've had the same iPhone for like at least 2.5, 3 years. I don't remember exactly when I got it. It's really old and it's on its last leg. And I bring that up because it's gotten in my way of creating more content on platforms like Instagram. Right now, it's almost impossible for me to post on Instagram because of how poor quality my phone is at the moment. So I'll get my iPhone tomorrow and I'll be super excited to share lots of stories and all of that. So look out for stories on Instagram. My handle's at EcoVeganGal if you're not already following over there. And then Derek said, I'm going to put this on the screen, the more mistakes you make, the more experiences you have. Ooh, that's a really wise thing to say, right? And it's very simple, but it's true. I mean, we're always having experiences, but I think sometimes mistakes heighten experiences because, well, if you react the way that I do. So it's kind of like sealing them in your memory more. And it's funny because I can look back on mistakes I've made and just laugh at them now. And I look forward to looking back and laughing on this now. So I think also how you can interpret that is that if you're making mistakes, then you're probably trying a lot of things. People that are so afraid of making mistakes that they don't want to do anything or try anything or have any new experiences, that's very paralyzing. For me, luckily, I am afraid of making mistakes, but that doesn't stop me from doing things. And I think that's an important thing to remember. So thank you for being so wise. And then Xylon said, or wait, not Xylon, Zyklon, is that how you pronounce it? Said, do you think you can judge someone's character by the way they treat animals? Not fully related to this topic, but I actually guess it is kind of related. I'm really a big proponent of doing our very best not to judge anybody, including ourselves. Can you tell somebody's character by the way they treat animals? From like a vegan activist perspective, a lot of people would say yes to that, right? For me, though, I think some people treat animals poorly out of pure ignorance. Animals, if you know about speciesism, that is not, I mean, it's very similar in a lot of ways to racism and to anti-Semitism, and what is the term for, there's some, I mean, any ism, negative ism, right? Speciesism is part of that, whereas you believe that animals are do not deserve the same rights, are not as intelligent, are not as important, are not equal, right? A lot of the times that people have these viewpoints about others is because they don't see them as equal. And that is exactly why I really encourage us to do our best not to judge, because when we judge, we're basically saying that somebody is greater than or less than us. And the truth at the core is that we all are equal. I think any living creature is equal. So again, I don't believe in judging somebody by the way that they treat animals. I mean, I might think something because it's hard not to, but if I really become conscious and aware of my thoughts, then I can step back and say, that person probably doesn't know any better, and the way they're treating that animal is probably the result of a lifetime of thinking that animals are less than them. You know, I think that's really the bottom line. So I have a lot of compassion for everybody, and I know a lot of non-vegans, and I've heard so many different explanations for why people eat animals or why people think it's okay to be cruel. And they just have different belief systems than I do, and experiences, and that's all it really is. It's not, I don't think it's a judge of their character. I think it's a judge of just their belief systems and their life experiences. What Jen did said, I can definitely empathize with you on being really critical. I easily convert that into guilt about making a mistake, but I'm so understanding about other people's mistakes. Me too, right? Speaking of compassion, man, if we have to remember the compassion that we extend to other people, we should be extending to ourselves. And also the compassion that we extend to ourselves is a reflection of how we have, whether or not we have compassion for other people. So similar to my response previously, I feel that if we're judgmental of somebody else, that probably means we're really judgmental of ourselves. So we can use that as a sign. If the way that you react to somebody else, think about if you were in that person's shoes, how would you react to you as that person, if that makes sense? And you can kind of go through it and say, oh, well, I haven't always been vegan, for example. I used to eat animals. Did that mean that there was something wrong with my character? I don't think so. I think that I simply did not know better. I was not educated. So I had not fully shaped the belief system to be where it is today, right? Same thing with mistakes, right? We can look at other people and say like, oh, that person made a mistake. It's completely fine. It's no big deal. I find it's very helpful if you don't have the tools yet to have that compassion for yourself, to just say, imagine yourself as another person. And so I can that's why I was able to see all of my mistakes as trivial, is because I was able to step back and look back on this from the future perspective. And I know that I'll probably forget that these happened or just laugh, or they're so minimal. And I also could imagine if it was a friend of mine that made those mistakes, I would just find ways to comfort them. So then now I can use those ideas of how I would comfort somebody else to comfort myself. And that's part of how I process. Yadi says that she is scared of making mistakes too. So I hope that this video was comforting for you, Yadi, and anybody else. And know that we're all in this together. We're all equal, and we all make mistakes as human beings. Thank you so much for watching. It's funny how I've been averaging like 45-minute long videos lately. I guess that's just the time it takes for me to explore things. It's like I'm giving mini lectures or something. Not quite mini. This is like the average lecture length. So thanks for listening to my lecture today. I'm going to get going. I've got a lot to do for this trip, and it's 12 o'clock. So yeah, I'm wishing you the very best with the rest of your day. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you soon. Maybe I'll see you from Greece if the internet connection is good enough. Bye.